someone wants to know the negative effects on weighted balls and long toss. I'm assuming this is a top velocity kind of question. I get a lot of questions on like what my opinions are with like different industry leaders, and I want to specify like I perceive the baseball industry as like, okay, well, who can help provide like educational value? And I think everyone that's in the baseball industry like has something to give, and it's majority good stuff. Now you gotta, maybe even with myself, like funnel through some of the stuff that doesn't apply to you. But shoot, man, like in the game of baseball, everyone's different. You know, I talk about that a lot as far as like every pitcher. I know it's kind of a cookie cutter saying, but it really is true. Like everyone's different to the stimulus, and you never really know until you know. Meaning you don't really know what's going to be the secret recipe for your development until you do know, right? And I think in order for you to know, it's kind of a trial and error process, and then sticking to what works, and then once things do work, don't fix it if it ain't broke type mentality. But I love a lot of stuff that Brent does. I had Brent on the podcast, like he was like my 11th guest or something like that. But I know what a lot of the things that he does are very researched and science-based, which is obviously fantastic. I'm a big believer though, like there's not a lot that you can really put absolutes on when it comes to throwing a baseball. Yeah, we can determine, you know, valgus stress and you know, workload and all of these like forces now and stuff like that. But I look at it like stress, elbow stress, valgus stress, whatever, like that's not the enemy. Like that's something looking at from the outside in, being like, oh man, that induces way more stress than this type of input, so then we'll only do this type of input. And again, before I dive into this concept, I really do want you to know, like I am biased towards the no long toss thing, because I have been in an organization where they cut the long toss out 120 time throwing program, and I was throwing 83. And obviously there's multiple variables to that. It's not just the throwing program. I'm sure there's definitely stuff up here mentally, but you know, I don't think it was an accident. As soon as I got my freedom back, or as soon as I got my long toss back, I got my freedom back and my athleticism and so on and so forth. But with that same breath, I will say, like, I know plenty of people that don't throw weighted balls, that don't long toss, that, you know, do whatever, and they're successful. It's great, fantastic. But in terms of the stress, the body is a freaking living organism, man. Like you got to stress the organism to then make adaptations, right? And I'm a big advocate of like looking at workload and looking at, you know, how much are we truly stressing the organism to then adapt, to then give back further down the road, right? It's the same kind of conversation with guys that, you know, younger guys, high school guys or whatever, that throw maybe once a week in preparation for like a Saturday or Sunday tournament, and then they complain about their arm being hurt or whatever. I'm not saying it's very similar to that, but it's kind of the same, in the same conversation in regards to stress adaptation and getting your body and getting your arm accustomed to stress, and obviously being intentional and being smart throughout that process. Now, I had Randy Sullivan on the podcast a year ago or so, and he made like a really good point that really stuck with me, and it made sense. Now, obviously it's a different kind of analogy towards throwing, but like he said, when you're in a car and there's no cruise control and you're driving, you got your foot on your gas and whatever, and you're going for a long period of time, like you're gonna get, you know, sore or whatever in that position, you're gonna change something up. So he made the point of like training in deviation, right? Making sure like you're not just doing one type of input. And it directly correlated to me when I was with that particular organization, where it was the same input over and over again. It was the same type of throw, and there was no deviation. I wasn't, like I said, I lost all athleticism. And then it dawned on me like, okay, well, athleticism isn't just about how high you can jump or how fast you can sprint or like how quickly you can move lateral or whatever. It's arm path athleticism too. Like how quickly can you be like, all right, that wasn't the slot, that was inconsistent. Now, how quickly can I get back? Athletic adjustments. And I believe that a huge piece to the ability to make athletic adjustments is the deviation, right? In training and deviation, and making sure that you're training your body to have a different type of movement, but still end up with the same goal and complete the same task, and then train that way. So then you just adapt that. I mean, hopefully this makes sense to anyone, but like in my head, it's just like a crystal clear picture. Now, with all of that being said, you might be a guy that doesn't need that, right? You might be a guy that just needs, like, all right, dude, like 60 feet, I'm here, fine, I'm a pitcher, blah, 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 like leg lift and go. And you could shove and you can win 20 games in the show and you can grow fungus on your shower shoes, and it's fantastic, nice. But maybe you're not that guy. But I do believe that you owe it to yourself to determine and to identify what type of guy that you are. And that's the end of the story. But yeah, just to echo some of those similar thoughts in terms of like the negative effects on weighted balls and long toss, like yes, because a lot of the scientific studies on baseball and overhead throwing are going to be in a negative connotation because of the amounts of stress that you're putting on your elbow or shoulders or a lot of things. But just like with any study, there's always the ending of it saying we think that it's negative. Again, when we're talking about baseball, man, there's no absolutes, and it's your responsibility to identify absolutes for yourself. I think that's all you can do, but hopefully that helps, and hopefully it makes sense.